Ibrahim Traoré, the young leader of Burkina Faso. The rise of a revolutionary. In a time of political turbulence and uncertainty, one man rose from the ranks to lead a nation. Ibrahim Traoré, at just 34 years old, became the world's youngest president in 2022 when he seized power in Burkina Faso through a military coup. But who is this man, and what drives his vision for the future of his country and Africa as a whole? This is the story of Ibrahim Traoré, a soldier, a revolutionary, and a leader born of crisis. Early life and military path. Ibrahim Traoré was born in 1988 in Bobo de Alasso, Burkina Faso's second-largest city. Coming from a modest family, he excelled in his studies and showed early signs of discipline and leadership. Traoré chose the military path, joining the University of Ouagadougou and later receiving officer training. He quickly rose through the ranks, serving in several missions across the Sahel. His experience fighting insurgents shaped his worldview and exposed him to the deep structural failures within the state. The Sahel Crisis and collapse of confidence. Burkina Faso has been ravaged by Islamist insurgencies since 2015, with vast parts of the country under the control of jihadist groups. Thousands of civilians have been killed, and millions displaced. The central government's inability to protect its citizens fueled widespread discontent. Traoré, stationed on the front lines, saw firsthand the lack of equipment, support, and vision. Disillusionment turned into action. The 2022 coup, a new dawn or just another chapter? On September 30, 2022, Traoré led a military coup, deposing Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Senda Ogo-Damaba. The young captain justified his actions by citing the government's failure to deal with the jihadist threat. Many citizens, tired of ineffective leadership, welcomed the change. But others feared history repeating itself in a country familiar with coups. Was this truly a turning point or just another cycle of instability? A vision of sovereignty and anti-imperialism. Unlike his predecessors, Ibrahim Traoré boldly confronted foreign influence, especially from France, the former colonial power. He demanded respect for African sovereignty and sought to forge alliances with new partners, including Russia and other non-Western countries. Traoré echoed Pan-Africanist ideals, calling for a break from dependency and the formation of a united front among African nations resisting neocolonialism. The people's president or a military strongman? Ibrahim Traoré styled himself as a man of the people. He wore simple uniforms, met with displaced villagers, and promised transparency. His charisma won him support across demographics, but critics warned of creeping authoritarianism. With media restrictions, civil society crackdowns, and the postponement of elections, some questioned whether Traoré's populism masked a return to military rule. War on terror. Burkina Faso's struggle continues. Traoré declared total war on jihadist groups, increasing recruitment, requesting volunteers for homeland defense, and strengthening regional security alliances. While some military gains were reported, the threat persisted. Civilians continued to suffer. Human rights organizations raised concerns about abuses, forced displacements, and lack of accountability. Yet for many, Traoré remained their best hope. Rewriting the social contract. Upon seizing power, Traoré spoke not only of war, but of rebuilding society. He emphasized a new social contract, one rooted in justice, dignity, and opportunity for all Burkinabe. Education reforms, healthcare improvements, and support for agriculture were prioritized. Despite limited resources, his government pledged to redirect national wealth toward local development. For Traoré, the battle was not only against insurgents, but against poverty and inequality. The youth factor, generation change. At just 34, Ibrahim Traoré symbolized a generational shift in African leadership. His rise energized young people across West Africa, many of whom felt disillusioned by aging elites clinging to power. Traoré's use of social media, direct language, and youth-oriented messaging inspired movements from Mali to Niger. He spoke their language, one of urgency, authenticity, and reclaiming destiny. This generation saw him not as a perfect leader, but as a necessary break from the past. Breaking from France, toward multipolar Africa. One of Traoré's boldest moves was demanding the withdrawal of French troops and closing French military bases in Burkina Faso. He accused France of neo-colonial interference and failing to protect African interests. In place of traditional Western partnerships, Traoré opened the door to new global players, notably Russia, Turkey, and China. This pivot sparked both hope and controversy. To some, it was an assertion of African sovereignty. To others, a gamble with uncertain consequences. The Sahel Alliance, a new regional vision. Under Traoré's leadership, Burkina Faso joined hands with Mali and Niger to form the Alliance of Sahel States. This alliance aimed to coordinate military operations, reject foreign dictates, and promote regional self-reliance. For the first time in decades, African nations were uniting not as clients of foreign powers, but as partners shaping their own future. The alliance drew admiration across the continent and fears from Western capitals. It was Pan-Africanism reborn in the crucible of conflict, critics and controversies. Yet Traoré's rule has not been without criticism. Human rights groups documented abuses by the army and volunteer forces. Media freedom shrank. Political opposition was sidelined. Some warned of a creeping militarization of society, while others pointed to Traoré's refusal to commit to a clear electoral timeline. Supporters argue that the existential threat of terrorism requires extraordinary measures. Critics worry that the revolution could devour its ideals. Pan-African echoes, Traoré beyond borders. Ibrahim Traoré's influence began to transcend Burkina Faso's borders. From Accra to Dakar, young Africans invoked his name in protests against inequality and foreign meddling. Pan-African thinkers compared him to Thomas Sankara, Patrice Lumumba, and Kwame Nkrumah. Even in South Africa, EFF leader Julius Malema hailed Traoré's bravery and clarity. A continent weary of empty speeches found a symbol in the young captain who dared to act. Women in the revolution. Women have played a critical role in Traoré's Burkina Faso, from bearing the brunt of displacement to actively participating in defense initiatives. Traoré acknowledged their sacrifices and included more women in decision-making roles. In speeches, he emphasized the liberation of women as central to national development. Still, challenges remained, from gender-based violence to underrepresentation. The revolution, women insisted, must include them not as symbols, but as leaders. Traoré versus the system. Ibrahim Traoré did not only confront jihadists or foreign powers. He faced a deeper, entrenched enemy, the system itself. Decades of corruption, nepotism, and elite capture had hollowed out institutions. Reforming governance meant challenging powerful interests even within the military. Traoré promised to lead by example, rejecting luxury, limiting privileges, and demanding accountability. His challenge: how to institutionalize change without becoming the institution he sought to replace. The spirit of Sankara, a legacy revisited. For many, Traoré's revolution evokes the spirit of Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's beloved former president who was assassinated in 1987. Like Sankara, Traoré spoke of dignity, self-reliance, and decolonization. He honored Sankara's memory and vowed to complete what his predecessor began. But history is not easily repeated. Traoré must navigate a far more complex geopolitical world and ensure that revolutionary rhetoric translates into real, lasting change. Future unwritten, hopes and fears. Burkina Faso today stands at a crossroads. Under Traoré's leadership, the country has reclaimed its voice, reimagined its alliances, and reignited a spirit of resistance. But victory is far from certain. The threats remain real. The path remains perilous. The line between savior and strongman is thin, and history watches closely. For now, Ibrahim Traoré remains a symbol of youth, of defiance, of the enduring dream of African self-determination. The young captain and the burden of hope. He did not campaign for office. He did not rise through polished speeches or backroom deals. Ibrahim Traoré rose through fire and now carries a nation's expectations on his shoulders. He may succeed, or he may fail. But for millions of Africans, he has already done something remarkable. He has reminded them that change is possible. And that sometimes, in the darkest hour, a young leader can emerge to challenge fate and rewrite the story of a continent.